What's up, guys? Zack Scriven here, tuning into the Zack Scriven podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Intellic Integration, Zack Scriven Media, and viewers like you. Thank you. Today's guest is someone I know very closely, probably most of my whole life. Some may even call her my mom, and they'd be right. Sonja Scriven. How's it going, Mom?
Hi, good morning. Great.
So, everyone just, I want to thank my mom for doing this. She's a little bit nervous to be on camera for you guys. So just, just thank her, and just, I'm sure you guys will love what she has to say. She has a lot of experience in the system integration business and also in life. And I think that she has some valuable things to share. So thank you guys. So, Mom, Sonja. Do you go by Mom?
I go by Sonja.
Okay.
Most of the time, I don't. Everybody says Mom, so I don't hear Mom. I hear Sonja.
You tune it out.
Yeah, a little bit. Sorry.
So, why don't you tell us where you're at right now in your life, and where you're working at, and what's going on?
Well, I am currently working with a fabulous company called Vertec. I'm a project manager and a team lead with them. My area of specialty in Vertec is in the water and wastewater field that I've been kind of a part of for a really long time. So, and I have amazing, really intimidating, young, and just amazing people that I work with. So
awesome.
I really enjoy it.
So, you and I have gotten a chance to work together before, and under different environments and different circumstances. So why don't you give us a little bit of history about from the beginning, like even as far back as graduating college, or where did you start at with your professional career?
So I got my degree in electronic engineering technology in Phoenix. I got a job right after graduating with GE Medical Systems. I was an electronic engineer.
It's okay.
You're not live, are you?
No, I'm not live. We're recording this.
Because you're going to have to cut this.
It's all right.
All right. So I was a field service engineer. I installed and serviced MRI and CAT scanners. And one of the amazing parts about that job was GE really knew how to train people to troubleshoot. So I spent a lot of time back in Milwaukee at their training facilities. And I think I really developed a strength in troubleshooting, thinking about how a customer views things, learning how to interpret customers' needs and concerns, and figure out what the problems were. So that was an outstanding experience for me. I did that for about 5 years, and then unfortunately it really wasn't conducive to having a family. And so after about 5 years, we kind of decided it was time to have a family, and your dad, Emery, and I kind of decided to change things up a little bit. So,
okay. So then where did you take your career from there?
Well, my passion had always really been teaching, but my dad once told me when I was little, if you become a teacher and you happen to get a divorce, you're not going to be able to support your family. And so he said, he thought I would be a good engineer. And I did really like to take things apart and put things together. So I think he had more faith in me than I probably did.
Yeah.
So, I got my degree, and then after GE, since we wanted to start a family, I thought, well, now's the time to go back and get my teaching credential. And I was able to do that. I had you when I was 30, and then I had Natalie a couple of years later, and I really enjoyed that. And then life, but my ultimate goal really at that time was to be home with the kids, and life sort of handed us a gift, and we moved to Southern California, and Emery had a great job with an engineering firm, and I was able to stay home with you guys for a few years. And that was wonderful.
Awesome. So the teaching was your passion, and you said your father, Papa, he was an engineer. He pushed you to get your engineering degree. I think you're a great engineer. You're brilliant. That's where I get a lot of my intelligence from, obviously, as well as being raised. But was he? Would you say that he was supportive of you? I've never heard this. Was he supportive of you when you were getting your your teaching credential, like after you had already started a career in the engineering field?
Absolutely, absolutely, okay. Because he understood that the main goal was for me to be home. And when I worked at GE, and although I did love the work, I would work 60, 80 hours a week, right, weeks on end, and it was, there was no way to balance a good family life with that. So, we needed to make some choices. But he was absolutely supportive, and he and my mom, Nona, they were gracious enough to pay for my education to get my credentials. So,
do you ever see yourself going back into the teaching field?
I think about it, but I think now I've really reached a point in my life where I actually I love what I'm doing, and I'm in a place where I'm much more comfortable with what I'm doing than I used to be. I think I was always worried because, with technology, it's constantly changing. And so you really have to keep up on everything that's happening in order to be, technologically, ahead of the game. Yeah. And that really wasn't my forte. Okay. But once I got to the point where I was kind of managing projects and dealing with people and, approaching things to get, to achieve an end result, then that's what I really enjoyed. And I think that's kind of like teaching, because you have to prep and then you have to execute, and at the end
you see the goal.
The goal is to teach the kids. So
whereas the engineer, the goal is to see it working and to understand why and to make that happen. And just coming from myself, I know that the skills that you just mentioned, like the planning and executing and seeing the large goal, sometimes those are not my strongest points. I'm pretty good at doing the engineering part, and so that's good that you're able to find that a position within the industry that you're able to better leverage your skills. If you guys don't know, she was fully technical, and she was developing SCADA systems and troubleshooting, so she definitely can do both ends. But
I was the third female in the world to ever be trained to install and service MRI and CAT scanners with GE. Awesome. So,
and you must have been pretty up there for Wonderware system platform, and I know you got some training. So let's talk about, you moved to Southern California, and then you were staying at home with us. When did you start getting back into the workforce, and what did that look like, and how did that fall into place?
I was really involved with you at school, and then Natalie started kindergarten, and by the time she got done with kindergarten, we were at a point where Emory had taken a position with Wonderware, which is a great software platform. And but he had customers that he had been servicing, and they kept calling him, and he said, well, I can help you, but my wife's at home, and now both the kids were in school for most of the day. So he kind of he helped me figure out, and I learned Wonderware, and I started with the integration aspect of it. Now, I had, grown up, my degree is very technical, so electronically I was strong, and I knew computer systems and, software, that kind of thing. So I had a really good foundation. Yeah. The integration aspect of it kind of came pretty easily. Yeah. And then the process parts of water, wastewater were the learning curve. But so I basically, for the first few years, so I started my little company, and I picked and chose a couple of customers that I just did part-time support on. They just called me up, and then I would, come out, and that went great. And I realized I was actually making more money working very part-time doing the integration, as opposed to if I'd have been working full-time, as a teacher. So for me, it was better to be able to pick you up in the afternoons and have you guys.
What was one of your first projects that you remember, or one that stands out to you?
One of my first projects was upgrading Crescenta Valley Water District's SCADA system to the new Wonderware. I think they went
version 7?
Yeah, I think it was version 7, and that's when InSQL came out.
Industrial SQL Server.
Yes. And
now called the Wonderware Historian.
Right. Yes, and they had they had Tesco PLCs out in the field, and so there were some nuances with drivers and the communications aspect challenges of it.
Would you believe me if I told you I saw the guys at Crescenta Valley at the Wonderware Roadshow this year?
Oh,
they're still having problems to this day with the Tesco PLCs. And I'm like, you guys haven't replaced those yet? They're like, nope. So,
well, the Tesco does a good job, and I mean, they've had them for a long time.
Yeah, I think that really kind of goes to show the nature of the industry is that once you install something, it could literally be running for 20 to 30 years. So, it takes an army of technical people and knowledge and information to keep these systems going. People like my mom and companies, integration firms all across the world to keep our infrastructure going. So I think it is a really valuable service. So that was a water project. What about do you like any wastewater projects? What customers or
I was servicing San Bernardino water reclamation facility out in the city of San Bernardino, and then they had a rapid infiltration facility.
RICS?
Yeah, RICS. And so I did several upgrades for them and service, screen building. I combined several applications and put together a redundant system for them. And the great thing about that I really enjoyed is when I started working with them, they had their engineering department, they had their technical, they had their operations, and none of them were talking, and everybody had different goals and ideas of what should happen. So what I implemented was a weekly get together, and we'd just sit down, we'd talk about the problems, and we'd hash out the best approaches to things.
So you're almost doing some operations consulting.
Yeah, it was really that. I just kind of, we talked about, I was the technical aspect of, these are the benefits of doing things one way or another. And then they all had their input, and then we would make decisions based on that. And then additionally, they had on staff people that were really, were technically coming up to speed. So I also did a lot of training with them. So in the end, they basically supported their own SCADA system and would call me in for the large, for larger projects, or if they were having trouble. And that was kind of nice, because ultimately it's really good if you have, a system that somebody can sufficiently support on their own and have the understanding of that.
They have the keys to the castle.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I saw, gosh, this was maybe 5 years ago, but I found on the bookshelf a binder. I think it was 1999 or 2000. It was the 2000. It was the online operations manual for this client that you're talking about, and I was actually blown away by the level of detail in that manual. One of the things that I really hate doing is technical documentation, and it actually just kind of blew me away that something that you did almost 20 years ago, would still be valuable to this day, and really compared to some of the stuff that I've done. I mean, I think I do okay technical documentation, but that document actually really stood out to me, even in today's standards. And it was like I said, 2000, year 2000. It was even, I think you did it in hyperlink, and so you had like hyperlinks down, so you could view it like as a web page, I think. And,
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, they had a tab. They could open up the O&M manual, and they could navigate to whatever area if they needed some additional support. So
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was a little bit, it was definitely a new concept at that time.
Yeah. So that's interesting though, because there are times where I've tried to bring new technology as I was coming and being more involved with the business, trying to adopt newer technologies, and there's been some resistance. So the fact that you were willing to do something so new is pretty interesting. So, for example, something that comes to mind is Xero and QuickBooks. So do you want to talk a little bit about...
I would love to talk about that.
Yeah,
yes.
Let's talk about
Yes, I would love to talk about that, because...
The pros and cons of the bleeding edge of technology.
Yes. So I think you're definitely from a generation, and you specifically, I mean, your father was extremely intelligent and innovative, and so you kind of grew up in this whole technical thing. I have a lot more fears and comfort in some of the things that I'm familiar with. And so when you kind of started taking more of a major role in, I had Waterhammer was my company that my husband and I ex-husband and I worked together on, Emory. And for many years, I think we had it for 17, 18 years before I handed it over to you. But when you started getting to the point where you wanted to implement some stuff, there's some areas that I'm comfortable in growing in, and then some areas that I'm not comfortable in. Mm-hmm. And one of them is the financial aspects of things. That's not a forte for me. Mm-hmm. I had QuickBooks. I knew how to handle it. It was safe for me. And then mm-hmm. you were looking at Xero and automated timesheets and making a lot of changes, and you definitely got a lot of resistance for me because I just was so familiar, so afraid of mm-hmm. losing that control.
But I think,
and understanding.
Yeah, I think you did teach me valuable skills though, because it's not just you. Like in general, I think in life when you're trying to innovate, you're gonna be faced with resistance. So it's just a matter of how you deal with that. Like, is it a matter of training and showing someone something, or communicating to them? It's almost a form of sales and art. So I was working at an early age on like learning those struggles and dealing with how to basically operate in a professional world. So
right.
I think that is pretty cool.
I think so too. I might add that we did end up switching over to Xero, and it did end up being a positive thing. It just took me a little while to hop on board with it. So
So now that you you were solopreneur, doing the work and just picking your own hours and kind of running a small company, to mm-hmm. scaling that up to a full company where Emory joined in a few years later and even hired your brother and myself and a few other employees here and there, Garrett Wolf and such. So so then you were kind of more like running a company, and then you you realized that really wasn't your passion, and then so where'd you go from there? Like how'd that transition happen?
So, well, I think between Emory and I, we had a really good working relationship. He was the technical aspect, and I understood the business aspect of it. So we worked really well together. And then, when things kind of started changing and we went through divorce, then you and I were running Waterhammer, and you had a lot of ideas and progressive changes that you wanted to make, and I was feeling really insecure because I had Natalie to put through school as well as you at the time. And, I was really kind of, worried about how things were going to work out and health insurance and everything. So we kind of decided that you could take over the business because that was your interest, and that I would go to work for another company. And so I ended up calling an old friend and ended up working for Delta Systems Engineering out in Irvine for about 3 years or so.
So I remember that yeah, we could talk more about working with your parents and stuff. We could get some feedback about that. But particularly what I remember about that was that you were actually really, really surprised, and it was a really good thing for you to feel valued and feel confirmation from others that you do have valuable skills in the marketplace, and that maybe you didn't necessarily always get that when you're running your own company, but so. Right.
Well, yeah, definitely.
It was like a confidence builder and booster for you. And it was an important transition for you, especially after, trying to build yourself back up after the divorce and such. So then you decided to move out to Arizona. So.
Yeah, my mom was having some health issues, and I couldn't afford to ever buy a house in California any longer. And so fortunately Delta had the headquarters was in Phoenix, so we kind of worked out a deal, and I moved to Arizona, and I really like it here. I was able to buy a great house, and I'm happy. I miss you guys. But
what attracted you to come to Vertec?
When I started with Delta, I had only ever known Waterhammer as my exposure to integration, and I had done the technical aspect of things early on, for quite a few years early on. And then I was doing more of the business, the management, the marketing, the sales kind of stuff with Waterhammer. So I had been kind of away from the technical aspects of it. When I started working with Delta, I realized how very different companies can be run. I guess on a small scale, I didn't really think about the fact that the way I ran my company was different than how other people ran their company. And so that's
something that I noticed as well too. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
Just hold that thought. But, coming from Waterhammer, where, pretty much anything we really kind of wanted to do, we could do it, to then, and you kind of wore like many hats, to then going to Vertec was the company that I worked for after, also. And where everything was kind of more defined, more structured, and it was very strange for me to get used to at first, but then I actually really started to like it, being able to just focus on engineering and not necessarily have to worry about ordering parts or building panels, and really interfacing with the customer and invoicing and all that stuff that an engineer doesn't really want to deal with. So and then even further to go to SOFA, and then how they have a different management style and way of running their business. No one's necessarily right. Everyone runs their own business, the way that they see best fit. But I think it is really valuable to get different perspectives. I mean, if you're young, a millennial, I think the average job tenure is like 18, 17 months right now. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to try out different companies and see what you like. And, I guess that's very different to the old ways where you got a job and you stayed with that company until you retired, and
So I have a little bit of a difference of opinion on that.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, because I think, so I realize, different companies, smaller company. When I worked for GE, it was big. It was, but when you're working for a smaller company, the nuances really make a big difference. And and you had started working for Vertec, and I had heard of Vertec for a really long time through my career with Waterhammer and through Delta. And I was interested in the way they put together their company and their mission statement and their culture.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part for me is being in a place where you feel comfortable and can be the best that you can be, because they facilitate the environment to be able to do so, and give you the latitude to be able to make positive changes. And that's, I think for me, that's what Vertec offered. And I'm I feel like I'm totally greatly compensated for what I do, but for me, compensation in the long run is secondary to traveling and growing through life and making an impact. I think you definitely get great experience on the short term if you're as you're learning and you're moving along, but at some point the only way to really impact, I think, in the long term is by working together to achieve goals. And I think that sort of ends up being a long-term, and additionally there's the investments of time and money that employers put into you. So I think you sort of have to weigh that and be fair about it.
I totally agree. Even though we're like talking about two different things, like I definitely agree. And millennials, like Walker said, more than anything, want to have a job that has a bigger purpose and a goal, and then you don't even feel like it's a job at that point. And I think Vertec does a really good job about that, like the control freak and embracing that nerd and the inner nerd and stuff. So I think that is really cool, and they do have an awesome looking website and marketing, so that's cool. But what also is cool is the sponsor of today's episode, Intellic Integration, another company that has a really cool mission. And talk about like doing something that is really cool. They've chose to sponsor the entire month of the Automation Month on the Zack Scriven podcast. So like that is just really cool, guys, that they're supporting me and my mission to provide as much value and information back into the industry. I was so fortunate to be able to grow up in a family of integration, and now I'm trying to just give that back. Like I'm only 25 years old and have already worked for several different companies and achieved what a lot of people would say is a high level of success. And I owe a lot of that to you and Emery, but also like sponsors and people like Walker who really helped mentor me in my career. So thank you guys. Thank you, Intellic, for sponsoring this entire month for the Zack Scriven podcast. So Sonja, why don't you say one thing that you love about Walker? I know you've got a chance to meet him at ICC. So
I think he's fabulous as a parent. So super intelligent, has a great ability to gather fabulous talent. On a personal level, my baby was going out to Texas all on his own, and Walker kind of took you under his wing, and I think you definitely learned so much. And I think that was one of the things that is, sometimes as a parent, it's really hard to sort of guide your own kid in a business environment, because your parent
takes a village.
Yeah, and I think Walker was, I think you grew a lot through that experience with Walker, and I know he's doing an amazing job out there, and I'm just really happy for them, and so I'm very grateful to Walker and his whole family for the interactions we've had. So
again, thank you, Walker, Tanya, and Intellic. Links to their plug in the description. And also, thank you to Zack Scriven Media for sponsoring this show, because I don't have a second ad slot filled for today. But so let me plug my own company. I am putting out this content. They're in charge. Me is in charge of putting out the Zack Scriven podcast, the Zack Scriven Show Live. I've been being called into like ministry and doing live streams with the Bible and volunteering my time at church, doing live streams there. So I'm doing a lot of things, and I'm really trying to find myself. And so basically, yeah, that's Zack Scriven Media. If you guys want, to be featured in as a sponsor and help support me and my mission and my goal to change the world, reach out to me. Contact information on my website, and that link will be down below. So thank you guys. Let's get back into the show.
Okay.
So thank you for doing this, by the way.
Yeah.
I know that you are, going through some health things right now, and that you say that you sometimes have a hard time finding words, or that you don't really know what was going on, and so you found out there's these issues with your thyroid, and you're going into surgery this week, and that's why I'm here right now. So I just wanted to say that it's okay, and that health comes first and family comes first, and you have nothing to be ashamed of. And you kind of stumbled earlier, but that's completely fine. I just want you to know that it's okay, and I just want to pray for you. And the viewers out there, your guys' prayers would mean a lot right now. So I just want to say, God, please help my mom, Sonja. She's an amazing woman, a woman of God. Help her heal and help her have a surgery, clean her body and her mind and her spirit and her soul, Lord. And help her get back to her true self, Lord, the woman you created, Lord. Lord, I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
I'm very proud of you.
You're an amazing kid. We were blessed with amazing children, both of my kids. And I saw how you and Natalie had your podcast. And
you watched that podcast?
Oh my God, yes, of course. I think that's one of the challenges of in life. Being a parent is really hard at times and challenging. You make mistakes. You don't always know the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You try to do your best with the best of intentions. But when you see your kids grown up and making, good choices and
some bad.
Hey.
A lot of bad choices.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I think it's just,
depends on
life is a learning experience. We all made our,
Mm-hmm. What would you say was your most proud moment? Well, let's break it down into two categories. Most proud moment as a parent, as it pertains to me, and Natalie too, and then also most proud moment in your professional career.
Okay, so probably my most proud moment with you was when I got to see you speak at the Ignition conference. You were you were on a panel, and you never cease to amaze me. You're eloquent. You have amazing foresight and thought, and so it was a really proud moment for me.
And can we get some B-roll of that video right here? So editor, will you just drop in that B-roll so you can see me talking? And okay, so what about with Natalie, my sister?
Oh, with Natalie, I think the proudest moment with Natalie really has been, she had a difficult time making the transition from, high school, moving away to college, and I really worried about where she would land. And she's next week she graduates from community college with her associate's degree. She has been so self-driven to do well, and to take responsibility and kind of handle it on her own. She's done an amazing job, and right now it looks like she's getting a 4.0, depending on how she ends up with a math class. But I am just so proud of her, and she works, and I think that's probably I'm just immensely proud of that as well.
Okay, and then in your professional career, from any job, it could be teaching, could be GE, Waterhammer, Delta, Vertec, whomever. What's the highlight?
Oh my gosh, there have been so many. There have been
Okay,
so many.
what's like your favorite startup or something on a project that you did?
Okay, I have to say by far and away, the most challenging project that I've ever worked on was the biosolids and energy recovery project at Irvine Ranch. Delta was doing the SCADA integration of 13 different major vendors, and I had a team of between 9 and 12 at varying times, 12 or 13 engineers working on different aspects, and the schedules were tight, and the environment was very challenging as well. And I learned an incredible amount, not only from my coworkers and from the project itself, but also the people that I worked with. In particular, we were subcontractor to Morrow Meadows, and that is such a high-class operation. And there were many times where I felt way over my head, and they were really supportive and helped me learn so much. So I think that was
I find that very interesting. That such a challenge. I know it's a very challenging project for you. That you find that the highlight of your career. That even though it was challenging and difficult, it was very stressful at times. But you still found that the most rewarding. And
when you walk out into, they were in the process of building the plant, and it was massive. It was 6 acres of process, and
so just cool being able to see it all.
It was
being a part of that process.
Yeah, and just the impacts that we were able to make, and that I had the responsibility to to work through that, and I felt like we were making progress. So I think that was really...
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I got 2 more questions, and then I'll open it up for you to ask me some questions before we close today. Gosh, now I forgot one. Okay, so I'm going to do the other one. What are some tips and advice that you have for someone like me who is working with their parents, or someone like you who is working with their children? Maybe they own their own business and their children are starting to get into their teens where they could start working around, or maybe they're graduated from college and want to work with their parents, or maybe outside of the system integration business, advice that you have from your experience working with me and Natalie to manage that parent-work relationship.
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice is there has to be boundaries for the work, meaning that when you go home at whatever time, you kind of have to let the work go. I think we weren't so good at that, and I think it changes the dynamics of the family at home.
Yeah.
If you don't.
From my perspective, that was one of the hardest things, was working with you and living with you, especially when we were working out of the home office. So definitely that. I'm glad that we moved on from that point, because then our relationship was able to become better. So but had we, maybe had things been structured a little bit differently, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but just for us, my personal experience was that, I prefer having you first and foremost as a mom and a mentor.
I prefer that too,
and
as well.
So yeah, although coworker wasn't bad either.
No, it was great. You were amazing. You that was another really proud moment for me too.
Now I'm thinking I had a really good question. You already talked about like kind of the difference between engineer and project management. Maybe I'll think of it. Do you have any questions for me?
Wow. Okay, let me think about it. So I do, because you are a really passionate person. You pretty much you taught yourself how to PLC program. You were working with us early on to integrate screens, so that was kind of an evolution. But how do you see the technical aspects of what you do right now? How do you see them playing into your future endeavors? Because I know you have a lot of interests.
So one of the things that I really enjoy doing as of lately is making like technical training videos. So that was one thing that I've always struggled with this business, is that sometimes I feel like I'm just reinventing the same wheel. And I know like it's kind of sounds cliche to say like, oh, well, every integrator is like keeping their code proprietary and then charging one customer after another to develop something they've already developed. That's probably like an extreme, and it's not necessarily unanimous across the whole board. But that's kind of what I felt like, is that things could be different. And so that's why I really like, I like doing videos, and I like doing training videos, because I like putting it out there for free, because I think it should be free. And so like I've been working with Rockwell. They've been giving me content, training material to produce and put out for free. So that's been really fun and exciting. A little bit with Wonderware, and like even like years ago I was been doing Ignition, like little tutorials and videos. So I think I'm definitely going to continue with that. Chris Schleich, who I'm talking to next week, he posted his first LinkedIn video and said, he's like, I've been like in industry for like 20 years. He has like a wealth of information. He's like, I should start sharing that with someone who's up and coming to help them get to where he got to quicker and easier, and then therefore the whole world like benefiting from that. So so that is how I see, taking what my passion is and the technical aspects of what I do, and kind of putting them together, and also kind of trying to solve some of the bigger problems that I see with the industry, because that's really what motivates me, is solving those big problems. And sometimes, like I said, like solving the little day-to-day problems, while important, could sometimes get boring or feel like you're doing something that's already been done, and that's not, like, to me, a good use of your life, right? So I think everything should become open source, with maybe a few exceptions with things that were very R&D intensive and stuff. But I think open source and just information transparency and training and a community really is where I see myself leveraging my skills and my talents.
I like that because I think getting some standardization and some consistencies within the industry. We could drive training and
so much value. If we drive more value as a community of integrators, even from different companies, we're talking about Vertec, and I'm being sponsored by Intellic, and I'm talking to Chris Schleich, who's with Enterprise Automation. Like, there doesn't need to be these walls in between these companies. And DMC, they're doing cool stuff like the Open PLC library and the Open HMI library. So I like that trend. I want to continue that. So anyone out there that's watching this, if you guys have some value to provide to the feedback, to provide to the community, reach out to me, and we'll see if we can set up a guest for you to be a guest on my podcast. So yeah, I think so my point was, the more value we can drive for the customer, the better, and that everyone does. The whole industry can grow as a whole, and it's not a zero-sum game, and we can just start solving bigger and better problems, and maybe eventually, who knows, So I was gonna say, like, we could go to Mars, but we got Elon Musk already working on that, so
there's a lot we can do.
On a closing note, name someone or a few people throughout your whole life, like, that you can give thanks to. Probably, obviously, starting with your parents, but like name some key individuals that were influential to you and why. Okay. And you can take as long as you need.
Okay. So I'm going to start with my dad, because he was an engineer and a physicist. But the utmost gentleman and honest and humble, but brilliant. And I have always aspired to be that kind of person, because he was just an amazing human being, an amazing father, and amazing, he achieved amazing things in his career. And so I'm very grateful to him for that. My mom is like flippin' a pioneer. She, wherever my dad, my mom and dad immigrated from Italy. Wherever my dad went, my mom just picked up and went. She when my dad first came over to the United States, he rented an apartment. And so my mom came over, and she hadn't seen the apartment. And this apartment had a bathroom with a curtain in front of it, in the kitchen. Yeah. That was the bathroom. And it was like, because my dad was like, he didn't think about those things. He didn't even notice. So, you know what, my mom just, she was has always been a trooper. He'd come, he would travel, and he would send postcards over, I think she has over 6,000 postcards.
Wow.
That he sent from, I think he was in I don't know how many countries.
50 plus countries. Usually.
Yeah. And he would send postcards, and then she has postcards that would be like, well, get ready. I got an offer back in Italy, and we're moving back to Italy, and so we'd go. So
behind the moral of that little mini story is, behind every successful man is a committed and maybe slightly crazy wife or partner.
Yeah, she was amazing, and she's an amazing mom and incredibly supportive. So and both of them were very supportive of me and getting all of us through school, and so I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful to your dad, because he, between us, we created two amazing kids, and we really had a beautiful life. We always called it the roller coaster, because there was a lot of loop-de-loops. Yeah. But I think it made life exciting at times. And he kind of got me into this field, and so that when we did end up getting divorced, I was able to continue on and help Natalie through school and kind of do my own thing. And so I'm very grateful
very
for
proud
that.
of you for that too.
Thank you. I think those would probably the three big ones that stand out in my mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you to Sonja Scriven for being on this episode of the Zack Scriven podcast. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions for Sonja or I, leave them down in the comments. We'd love to hear you guys, what you guys thought. And we're out here, we're trying to change the world, and you can see her passion, you can see my passion. I'm very grateful. And, like I said, she's, dealing with some health issues right now. So it was kind of a big step of courage for her to do that. So
you'll do anything for your kids.
Yeah. And like I said, I pray that she, gets back to her full health and feels back to herself. So and we'll let you guys know how that comes out. So her surgery is scheduled for Wednesday next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep her in your thoughts and prayers, as I will. So in closing, like I said, reach out to me if you guys want to be on the Zack Scriven podcast, or if you guys want to be a sponsor and help support what it is I'm doing here. Because I'm just going to keep putting out free content, and until the value that I put out far exceeds anything that's ever been done before, and then other opportunities maybe just start flowing back into me little by little. So that's really what I'm focused on. So couldn't be done without you guys, though, sitting here watching. So I really do appreciate if you guys stuck in there this long and watched it till the end. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Zack Scriven podcast.